Why is it?
When a level 2 engine is getting used, it's always U4.
Believe me, Professor, I've been asking myself the same question for 6 years.
Hey gang, Matt again. Hope this deck profile and combo guide finds you well. We're back on Spright again in a vain quest to use Spright in every deck that runs any level 2 or Link 2 monster, which I think is most of them, but today we're on Krawler. If you're not familiar with Krawler, I obviously don't blame you. This archetype is, what's the nicest way I can put this? Total and complete garbage. Anyway, they are an archetype of insect flip monsters. I know, shocker, that they suck. The flip effects are usual fare. They can pop a monster, pop a spell, some of them search, things like that, etc., etc. Nothing to really write home about or build a deck around. They do have one unique gimmick where if your opponent removes them from the field face up by card effect, you can special summon 2 Krawler monsters from your deck in face down defense. So that is a very nice +1, but unfortunately some opponents can read. They'll just play around that and it'll never come up really. So once again, nothing really we can build around. However, there are some standouts from the archetype that are worth taking a look at. First up, World Legacy Survivor. It's hard to imagine how this card isn't broken. If this card was given to almost any other deck, it'd easily find its way on the Forbidden Limited list. This card allows you to excavate the top 5 cards of your deck. If you find any Krawler or World Legacy cards, you get to add 1 to hand and send the remaining to the grave. It does lock you into Link summoning, but that's only after the card is activated, meaning you could like XYZ summon before you activated this card, and that's totally fine. If this card does miss, it's pretty useless, but we're on 13 Krawler and World Legacy cards, so we have somewhere between a 75% and 90% chance of it hitting at least one, assuming a 35 card deck. So it's pretty likely you'll find something if you do activate this card. The next real standout is their boss monster, Deus Ex Krawler. Pretty impressive stats, but more importantly has the continuous effect, where if he's flipped face up, he negates all activated monster effects on your opponent's side of the board. And a one-sided skill drain is pretty good. I do hate Konami's card design when in order to make a boss monster really strong, they just print a floodgate on a body. But this deck does a great job at taking advantage of this card, and as we have a pretty easy way to summon him, so we are going to use him. We're able to easily summon him with the next trap to go over, World Legacy's Mind Meld. This card is an interesting monster effect negation that sort of pairs well with the Crawlers and their double searching effect, but it's a bit too wonky to really take advantage of. Really, we're running it for the grave effect, where you can banish this card in order to special summon a Krawler monster from hand, deck, or grave to a zone of link monster points to. So ideally we want to get this card in the grave, and then we can use that to get Deus Ex Krawler on the board. And we can get this card in the grave by either sacking it with Survivor, sending it with Foolish Burial Goods, or otherwise just discarding it by hand by monster effects, which we'll get into. And then probably the best Krawler card and the entire reason to even consider this deck is the Legacy support card, Krawler Soma. Soma is absolutely bonkers, and if you saw my Beat Trooper video, you already know how much I love this card. Konami was like, you know what, this deck needs to be playable, how about a nice +2? If you have Soma in hand, you can target another monster on board, flip that monster face down, then special summon Soma. Then while on board, you can reduce Soma's level in order to special summon Krawlers from hand, deck, or grave, equal to the amount reduced. The lower level Krawlers are all level 2, so that means Soma reduces by up to 4 and gets to special summon 2 Krawlers from basically anywhere. So you get to turn 1 body on board into 3, and not only is it 3 bodies on board, it's 3 level 2 bodies on board because Soma becomes level 2 afterwards. And you know, when there are level 2 bodies on board, Spright wants to come out to play, and they end up working out pretty well with this deck. Partially because the synergy is pretty solid between the two archetypes, but also partially and probably mainly because Spright is completely busted. Now, I will say I generally think mashup strategy decks are dumb, especially when it's clear one archetype is far superior than the other, and the bad archetype's doing basically nothing for the deck other than maybe the occasional meme play. So really, I'm only interested in mashups when it gives the deck access to something more interesting than the standard list of the good archetype, and the bad archetype is actually useful to the good archetype in some way, if that made any sense. Basically, I want to see some actual synergy and not just another way to end on the same board that the good archetype already makes. Now, this deck is unfortunately definitely not the best way to play Spright. If you'd like to see an actual good list, my Spright Melfi video goes over probably the best way to play Spright right now. The Krawler and World Legacy cards take up way too much of the main deck, so we've basically had to cut all non-engine from a standard Spright list just to make room for it. That really weakens our ability to go second. One of the best parts of pure Spright is just how lean the main deck is, and you get to run a heavy hand trap and other staple lineup. Unfortunately, we just don't have the room for that here. However, for this deck, when we win the coin flip, we can actually put up boards stronger than other Spright variants, which is very nice. Soma gives Spright access to the ability to put way more material on board than they usually can, But also the Krawlers give Spright access to Deus Ex Krawler, which is just an absurd and frankly game-winning floodgate when we manage to get him set up. That's a general summary of the deck. Hopefully that'll all make more sense going over the combos and reviewing some duels. For the ratios for the card we're running for Spright main deck, we're on 3 blue, 3 jet, 2 starter. There are combos, extenders, searchers, everything that makes Spright. And then, of course, we're on the 1 red, 1 carrot, 1 smashers, our searchable pieces of interruption and payoff for the Spright engine. And last, we're on the 1 gamma burst as a searchable way to just close out games. And then for the extra deck, very standard, 2 elf, 2 gigantic, searching, extending, plussing, interrupting, just extremely strong cards. For the Krawler main deck, we basically went over all their effects, but for the level 2 Krawlers, we're running the 2 least bad ones, Spine and Axon, who on flip can pop a monster or pop a spell trap respectively. That effect comes up maybe 1 out of every 50 games. Mostly we run them as a somewhat soft garnets as payoff for Soma, is why we're running them. Another possible and maybe meme use for them is to shore up Spright's weakness to board wipes like Raigeki. If your opponent tries to Raigeki a board with Elf, you could chain Elf, target Axon, and then that'll special summon Axon, and then Axon's getting cleared by an opponent's card effect, and you get special summon 2 Krawlers from the deck. Which that isn't too bad, but once again, that's just something that's just so rarely going to come up, especially when board breakers like Raigeki and Lightning Storm just aren't even seeing play right now. For the good cards for Krawler, though, we're of course on the 3 Soma. He works as a starter or extender for us, puts an absurd amount of material on board for us to work with. His stats aren't bad either. And then we're on the 1 Deus Ex Krawler as our payoff for running the Krawlers. He's interruption, big numbers, win con, great card when we can make him work. We just need to get Mind Meld in the grave. And then, of course, we're on 3 Survivors. One of the ways we hope to get Mind Meld in the grave is with this card because we can mill it off that. But also just a nice way to find Soma. Just unfortunately requires a bit of luck. But I went over the percentages before. We've got a good chance of hitting something useful. We're on the 3 Mind Meld. We really can't get out Deus Ex unless we see this card and get it into the grave. So really we need to see this card as often as possible. So we're on 3. And then last we're on 1 World Legacy Pawns. This card allows you to flip a face down Krawler face up. Mind Meld summons the monster face down. So this card allows you to get the Deus Ex Floodgate set up, and it's searchable by our only extra deck card related to the archetype. Liberal, the keyword Blade Master. She's a Link 2, which pairs well with the Sprites, and only requires 2 monsters as material, so pretty much generic as it can get. Unfortunately, we can't special summon her until a World Legacy card is in the grave, so ideally we want to get World Legacy Mind Meld into the grave, summon Lib with whatever, and then we'll use Lib's other effect, which allows us to set pawns face down, and then banish Mind Meld, which will allow us to special summon Deus Ex, and then use pawns to flip Deus Ex face up, which will turn on the floodgating effect. We'll go over how to use Lib in the combo portion of the video, but she's one of the most important cards for this deck. Her other effect is also great, where if you link her off, you can spin 1 card on the field back into the deck, which pairs perfectly well with IP Mask as interruption that we get to set up on the opponent's turn, or just even if it's on our turn and our opponent has some cards on the board that we want to get rid of. For main deck non-engine, 3 Maxi, 3 Ash, 2 Called By, yada yada yada. We are on a small Battle Wasp package. We're on 3 Sting, 1 Pin the Bullseye. Sting is a level 2 tuner that on summon can search Battle Wasp monsters, so that allows us to search out Pin, who Pin can special summon himself when you control an insect, which obviously Sting is. With Sting being a level 2, he pairs well with the Sprites, and as a tuner gives us access to Herald in some combo lines, which is nice. But also just a nice way to get 2 bodies on board because he's able to search out Pin. Also, he's an insect, so he pairs well with Soma. The general way I've been taking advantage of that, you summon Soma, use Soma to get out the 2 bodies, you link off those 2 bodies for Insecto Pico Felina. Pico can discard a card, and then you're able to equip Sting to the Soma that's still on the board, and then you just link off Soma and Pico Felina to go into Elf. Elf can revive Sting, and then Sting's effect will trigger, you'll search out Pin. And now you've got Elf with 2 bodies on the board. And as Pico's effect requires a discard, ideally we'll be able to use that to discard any Mind Melds from our hand in grave, and that'll allow us to set up Deus Ex. We're on 1 Gale Dogra, who is a level 2, which Sprite stuff, but Gale Dogra can send a monster from the extra deck to the grave for the low cost of 3,000 life points, which means we can use Gale Dogra as a monster we can summon off Gigantic Spright, and then with Gale Dogra, we'll send El Shaddai App Cologne. When App Cologne is sent to the grave, that'll trigger the effect to allow us to add 1 Shaddai card from our deck to the hand, which we will be adding our 1 of Shaddai Schism, which will allow us to special summon an El Shaddai window on our opponent's turn. Which, yay, more floodgates. For the extra deck we didn't cover, we're on the 1 Gin Buster as a possible interruption we can set up using the Sprites. Run 1 Skive Cav as a way to summon Zeus to crack boards, typically how we're using that. Run 1 IP Masquerena as part of our end boards, which we can use to go into either like Unicorn to spin a card, or Avermax is just a powerful Towers monster that protects our weaker monsters in battle, but also is just a difficult monster for our opponent to remove. Also, I think he fits the deck thematically. Sorry to any lore knowers if I'm incorrect about that, but I think he goes with all this storyline. So anyway, that covers the deck. If you have any questions about any of that, please post them below, but hopefully any questions that you have will get answered in the next portion, where I'll show some of the main combo lines. After that, I'll go over some duels showing the deck in action, and then we'll round off the video with some other cards you might want to consider, as well as my final thoughts on the deck. With that, let's see what the deck can do. So Spright generally has pretty easy combo lines, and most of the time you'll probably just be doing usual Spright lines with this deck, because unfortunately Mind Meld is not searchable. However, I will say the Spright deck is a little trickier to play because you do need to be prepared for certain summon locks, namely off Gigantic Spright, Spright Starter, but also World Legacy Survivor. World Legacy Survivor locks you into only Link summons from the extra deck, but that's only after it's been activated, so generally I recommend trying to get Gigantic summoned before you activate Survivor, if you are going to activate Survivor. You don't need to activate Gigantic right away, just get them on the board first if you can. For Gigantic and Spright Starter, after they have been activated, you are locked into Link, Rank, and level 2 monsters for the remainder of the turn, so make sure if you're going to summon Soma or Pin, make sure you summon them first, because Soma's obviously level 6, Pin's level 1, both can't be special summoned while under that effect. Also, make sure not to activate Mind Meld if you're under the level 2 lock, because you won't be able to get Deus Ex, you'll only be able to special summon Spine or Axon because they're level 2. But Mind Meld is a trap, so all you need to do is leave a Link zone open, activate Mind Meld on the opponent's turn after the lock has gone away. If you want to follow along, or just for future reference, I've included a spreadsheet of the combo lines in the description, so feel free to check that out. But otherwise, let's review some lines. This first combo is going to require the ability to get Soma on board, and then have the ability to get Mind Meld in the grave, and then also the ability to have some sort of Spright extender that's either going to be blue or jet. So it does take a few pieces, but it is going to put up our best end board, so we'll go ahead and start with this one. First, we need a monster on board that Soma can target, so we'll go ahead and just normal summon this Max C, then we'll activate Soma, target Max C, that allows us to special summon Soma. We'll activate Soma's effect, reduce his level by 4, now allow us to summon Spine and Axon. Make sure you're summoning them base up. Then we will link off 2 of them to go into Pico Felina, because we want to be able to discard that Mind Meld from our hand. So activate Pico's effect, discard Mind Meld, target Soma, and then we'll equip him with Sting the Poison. Now we'll go ahead and special summon Jet while we still have a level 2 monster on board, just to make sure we can get him on the board now. And then we'll go ahead and search out Starter. And then we'll link these 2 off for Elf. Activate Elf. Special summon that Sting that's in the grave. When Sting gets summoned, that triggers his effect. That allows us to search out Pin. Now we'll go ahead and special summon Pin. We want to make sure we special summon Pin before we activate Starter, because we want to make sure we're not under that level 2 lock. And of course, make sure you activate Pin. That 200 damage is very important. Now we'll link off these 2 to go into Lib. We'll do it in this right zone because the space next to Lib's free. Go ahead and activate her effect. And then we want to set pawns. Now we'll activate Mind Meld. Target Lib. And then we will set Krawler. Now we'll go ahead and finish off the Spright line. Go ahead and activate Starter. Get, of course, Blue. Activate Blue. And we're going to search out Carrot. You could search Red instead. It depends on which one you prefer on the end board. Currently, I am the fan of Carrot, especially with Deus Ex. I don't think the effect negation is important from Red. So I'll search out Carrot with Blue there. And then we will link these two, we'll exceed these 2 off for Gigantic. And then we will detach either material, doesn't matter. And we're going to go ahead and grab, you could get the Gale Dogger there if you want to, but for me, I'll just go ahead and get Red here, just get him in rotation. And then we'll link these 2 off for IP Mask. And then last, we'll special summon Carrot. And then that gives us our end board. And then just to show it off, I'll kind of show you the interaction we have available to us. So in the draw phase, go ahead and activate pawns. We'll target Krawler. Now Krawler's face up. Now he's active, negating any effects. Our opponent summons a monster. And just to show off the nice way, we can use IP Mask and Lib. Activate IP Mask, and we will link her off with Lib. And we'll go into Avramax. And then that's even going to give us the ability to spin a monster with Lib once she goes to the grave. Now, because that set monster is a level 2, that monster is able to be tributed by Carrot, which I will show here in just a second. And also, sure, why not bring back Lib? We can link her off again next turn. Spin that card, and we've got a pretty good board. So an important distinction between Carrot and Smashers. Carrot and Red contribute face down level 2 monsters, which I'll show here in order to activate their effect and negate. But Smashers is not able to. Because Carrot and Red obviously are tributing for cost. The banish from Smashers obviously comes as part of the resolution of the effect, so that's why you're not able to do that. So this line requires the ability to get Soma on board and then a Spright Extender, either Blue or Jet. So we're going to start out by normal summoning the Ash, special summon Soma, activating its effect, reduces level by 2, and then we'll special summon 2. And this is similar to the line before, but this line is when we are not able to get Mind Meld in the grave, so it's going to switch up our line a little bit. Because we're not going to be able to go into Deus Ex, and we're not going to be able to go into Lib. So once again, we're going to go into Pico, discard whatever the worst card in our hand is. In this case, let's make it Sting. And then at this point, we're actually going to have 3 Insects and Graves, so we can actually use Pico's other effect in order to spin back to draw a card. So let's go ahead and do that this time as well. And then once again, we're going to link these 2 off for Elf. Activate Elf's effect, bring back that Sting that was formerly equipped. Sting's effect will activate. Go ahead and add Pin to hand. Special summon that Pin. Make sure you get in for that 200. Special summon Blue. Activate Blue, get Jet. Special summon Jet. Have Jet get Starter. You know, nothing new here. Just normal Spright things. And since we're not under any sort of summon lock yet, we'll go ahead and synchro these 2 off for Herald. And let's go ahead and put in the Elf zone so it's non-targetable. That's always nice. Now let's go ahead and activate Starter. And we'll grab Red. And the reason to grab Red there is because I want Carrot on my end board once again, because currently I'm valuing Carrot more than Red at this point. But exceed those 2 off for Gigantic. Activate Gigantic's effect. Doesn't matter who you detach, Gigantic's not going to be on the board long. And then we'll go ahead and grab Carrot just as some more interruption for our opponent's turn. And then last, we'll link these 2 off for IP Mask. So once again, another pretty solid end board, even though we weren't able to go for the Deus Ex line. So this is the solo Soma line. This is when you don't have a Spright Extender, so just go ahead and ignore that I had that Jet, just trying to show it off here for an example. So any normal summonable monster, you'll flip them down with Soma, activate Soma's effect, and we'll special summon 2 Crawlers from our deck. And this is the version of the combo when we want to get Mind Meld into the grave. So once again, we need some sort of discard outlet, so we're going to link these 2 off for Inzektor Pico Felina. Activate the effect. Discard Mind Meld. Target Soma. Equip them with Sting. Link them both off for Elf. Now let's activate Elf. Target Sting. Sting's effect will trigger, which will search out Pin. Special summon Pin. And then say it with me, minus 200. Now we'll overlay both Elf and Pin in order to go into Gigantic. Activate Gigantic. Detach Sting. Go into Blue. Activate Blue. Blue get Jet. Jet get Starter. Same old, same old. Now there are some options available to you on how you want to end it here. You could go like straight to Lib, but I like to have an Elf on my end board, so I usually am willing to go into my second Elf here, so I'll go ahead and link these two off for Elf. And then I'll link these two off to go into Lib, so we're able to set our pawns from deck. Activate Lib. Set pawns, and now we are under a level 2 summon lock from Gigantic, so make sure you do not activate Mind Meld yet. And we'll go ahead and also activate our starter to get a carrot. Go ahead and put it in the Elf Zone just for the targeting protection. And once again, make sure you're not activating that Mind Meld. We'll go to the end phase, we'll toggle on. In the opponent's draw phase, go ahead and activate that Mind Meld. And then on resolution of that, we can start a new chain, go ahead and activate pawns, flip up that Deus Ex. Now we've got them under the Deus Ex lock. And we still have a pretty decent board. So this is our solo Soma line, but this is when we don't have Mind Meld in the grave and no way to get it in the grave. So go ahead and just normal summon any monster, special summon Soma, activate Soma's effect, reduces level by 4. Get out Spine and Axon. And this time we're not going to go into Pico because it's really not beneficial for us. So we'll exceed these two off for Gigantic. Because Gigantic just takes generic material for whatever reason, very nice. And then we'll detach material, and we're going to go ahead and grab Blue. That'll trigger Blue. Blue Jet Starter, the classic. You'll link off Gigantic and Soma to go into Elf. Activate Elf. Bring back anyone, doesn't really matter. And then go ahead and activate Starter as well there too. Doesn't really matter the ordering there. And at this point I'm grabbing Carrot, putting Carrot in the Elf Zone. Now you have some options available to you. You could go for Djinn Buster here if you want. Which will go here. Make sure you have Blue and Jet because Djinn Buster does require dark monsters, unfortunately. And then we'll use these two to go into IP Mask. And then on the follow-up turn, when we get the chance, we can revive Carrot with our Elf if we need to. Alright, so we'll finally get into some non-Soma lines. This is when you have Sting the Poison and then some sort of Sprite Extender. For this one, it's going to be Blue, but it could also have been Jet or probably also Starter. But we'll go ahead and just normal summon Sting, activate his 6, search out Pin. And then we'll activate Pin, get him for that 200. And now since we have a level 2 monster on board, we can special summon Blue, activate Blue, search out Jet. We can special summon Jet. That'll trigger Jet. Activate Jet, get Starter. And before we lock ourselves into level 2 monsters, we are going to synchro off Pin and Blue. And that'll allow us to go into Herald. Herald is extremely good against tiers, so I kind of like this line right now. And then we're able to link these two off here for Elf. Activate Elf, bring back whoever, doesn't really matter. Now we'll activate Starter. Get Carrot or Red, whoever you prefer. We'll get Carrot. Exceed these two off for Gigantic. activate Gigantic. And at this point, you could get red if you wanted to get red in rotation, or you can get Gale Dogra if you wanted to set up the Gale Dogra interruption with Winda. So for just showing off, let's go ahead and do Gale Dogra, activate his effect. Nice big 3000, send App Clone will trigger. Then you'll add Schism to hand, and discard whatever the worst card in your hand is. If it was Mind Meld, we could do Mind Meld there, and then we'd be able to go into like Lib there. But since we didn't have Mind Meld, we'll just go into IP Mask here. And then we'll go ahead and set Schism. And then on the opponent's turn, we can revive something like a Carrot or a Jet. Here's the combo line when you open only Sting. Go ahead and just normal summon that Sting, activate the effect. This is obviously one of our suboptimal hands, but they occasionally happen, so I just want to make sure you're prepared for it. But then you'll be able to special summon Pin, get 200 damage in, get you ever closer to those lifetime missions of inflicting damage. And then you'll be able to link these two off for Elf. Activate Elf, bring back Sting. And now we can overlay these two for Gigantic. Activate his effect. Detach Sting, because that'll leave our Gigantic at 3200, which is nice. And then we'll special summon Blue. Blue, I wonder if you can guess what I'm going to get. That's right, Jet. Special summon Jet. Activate Jet. And go ahead and grab that starter. We can't activate Elf again, but I just want to get Elf on our end board, so we'll go ahead and link these two off for another Elf. We'll activate our starter, and then you can get either red or carrot here, whoever you prefer. For this sort of board, probably prefer red, just so we have some sort of effect negation. So not the best end board, but at least it's decent compared to nothing at all. This combo line requires any sort of normal summonable level 2 monster and then blue or jet. In this instance, it's blue. We also have the Mind Melts. We'll also show off setting up the Deus Ex Krawler as well. So special summon blue, that'll allow us to search out jet. Special summon jet. Jet will get starter. Overlay these two for Gigantic. Activate starter. We want to get red on the board before we commit to the Gigantic. Activate Gigantic. Detach blue. And we want a discard outlet, so we'll go ahead and special summon Gale Dogra. Activate Gale Dogra. Send App Clone. App Clone will trigger. Search out Schism. And then discard Mind Meld. Link these two off for Elf. Activate Elf. Doesn't really matter who you bring back. Typically I'll do blue if we want to do like Gin Buster with Jet there. But we want to make sure we get the lib set up, so we'll go ahead and link these two off for the lib. Activate it. We want to make sure we get pawns set. And then we want to make sure we don't activate Mind Meld because we are currently under a level 2 lock. So we'll go ahead and set the Schism. We do not want to activate that. We just want to go straight to our end phase, and I usually toggle on just so I can activate it right at the draw phase. So we get draw, activate Mind Meld, target lib, and set Deus Ex Krawler. And then if you want, you can go ahead and activate pawns, and we'll go ahead and flip up Krawler now. And just to show it off, I'll show you off some other plays we can make on the turn. As soon as they normal summon, we can activate Elf, bring back whatever, get a Jet for the search, and then we can also Schism as well. Actually, I did that in the opposite order. I should have done Schism Chainlink 1, Elf Chainlink 2, but it doesn't really matter. And then you can use App Clone as one of the material for Winda, and then Gigantic is dark, so we can use Gigantic there as the other material for the fusion. And now we've got them under the Deus X, and we also have them Winda lock, so a pretty strong board. So this is a similar board to what we had before, but this time we don't have the Mind Meld, so we'll just go ahead and do a pretty standard sprite line. So normal summon Carrot, that's a level 2 normal summon. Then we'll special summon Blue, activate Blue, search out Jet. Jet, search out Starter. Activate Starter. Typically like to get red set up before I go into Gigantic. Overlay the level 2 monster normal summoned along with Blue, go into Gigantic. Activate Gigantic. And then we could go into Sting if you want to search Pin, but you won't be able to special summon that Pin. You'll only be able to use it as follow-up for the next turn. So we'll go ahead and just do Gale Dogra so we can set up the Winda. So once again, Synapse Clone is going to activate the effect. Search out Schism. Discard whatever the worst card in your hand is this time. We'll go ahead and do the SX Krawler because he can pretty much be anywhere for us to special summon him. And then we will link to off for Elf. Activate Elf. Bring back Blue because I want to make sure I've got the level 2 Dark Monster. Because I can go into Djinn Buster if I went there, or I can go into IP Mask, whichever I prefer. For this time, I'm going to go IP Mask. And then we'll just set the Schism. And that's it. So this is another suboptimal combo when we open only Starter. Go ahead and ignore that Jet in my hand. I'm just trying to show this off. But go ahead and just activate Starter, special summon Blue, that'll trigger Blue. Activate Blue, search out Jet. Special summon Jet. And since we already used Starter this turn, there's really no reason to have that Jet search out Starter again. So we'll go ahead and this time we'll search out Smashers just as an interruption we can use on our opponent's turn. Exceed these two off for Gigantic. Activate Gigantic's effect. Special summon Sting. Activate Sting. Search out Pin. And because we have it normal summon, now we can normal summon this Pin. We don't have to worry about special summoning him. And we can still get him for that 200, which is great. You also could have gone Gale Dogger there if you value the Winda more. I value the extra material for the more link plays, so I do go ahead and do the Sting and the Pin play there. And now we'll link those two off for Elf. Activate Elf, bring back whoever. Fortunately, we can't synchro for Herald, but we can at least go into IP Mask. And then go ahead and set that Smashers. And then we have Elf to special summon thing on our opponent's turn, IP Masks to link with that, or Elf, and then we have Smashers to banish something. Not the best end board, not the worst, but decent. Then this isn't really a strict combo, but I just want to kind of show it off as just like a lines you can do. This is like playing Underworld Legacy Survivor, because remember you cannot do XYZ summons after you've activated Survivor. So we'll go ahead and just do a small sprite line just before we activate this. We don't want to activate Starter yet. At this point we'll go into Gigantic with these two. Could have of course activated Gale Dogger there if we wanted to. And at this point we'll activate Survivor. Try to either find Mind Meld or get it into the grave, ideally. So there's a Mind Meld that we hit, that's very nice. And Deus Ex Krawler, that Mind Meld much better in the grave, so we'll go ahead and just add the Deus Ex Krawler. And now we can make some sort of line to try to get Lib and then Deus Ex Krawler on the board. So activate Gigantic. And we haven't used Blue yet. So let's go ahead and grab Blue. Activate Blue. Search out Carrot or Red. Activate Starter. Just grab whoever else you didn't grab yet. Link off for Elf. Now we can activate Elf. Bring back Blue. Link two of these off for Lib. Activate Lib to set pawns. And then go to a run base because we're level 2 lock, toggle on, and then just do the Mind Meld. Along with pawns to flip Deus Ex face up. And that's pretty much it for what I have for the combo portion for this video. Up next, I have some duels to showcase the deck in action, so sit back and enjoy. Alright, first duel up, we won the coin toss, and we've got Soma and Mind Meld, and just a normal summon of monsters, so let's go ahead and make that happen. So normal summon Max C, targeting with Soma, special summon our 2 Krawlers from deck, and we're going to link those 2 off for Pico. Activate Pico, we're just going to send that Mind Meld to the grave, we'll link these 2 off for Elf. Bring back that Sting we sent to the grave, activate Sting, grab our pin, special summon pin, boom, 200, go into Gigantic, activate Gigantic, special summon blue, activate blue, link those 2 back off for Elf, special summon that Jet, get Starter, link these 2 off for Lib, activate Lib, activate Starter, get out Spright Carrot, set that called by, and we'll pass. In the draw step, we'll go ahead and activate that Mind Meld, target Lib. He's going to open with a branded opening, and he's going to go Luber. Luber is going to trigger, he's going to try to get search here. We're going to go ahead and chain our pawns. We'll target Deus Ex, flip him up, that's going to negate a Luber. He's going to try to normal summon Fallen of Abaz. Unfortunately, Deus Ex still has text. He is going to be able to negate my summon off of Elf by sending it back to deck, which is unfortunate, but can't really be helped. Of course, Deus Ex is going to negate Albaz. Just going to go to battle phase, going to beat over my Elf. And let's see if the Liberal Keymaster can beat Let's Go Branded. So we'll flip up that Max C, we'll activate Lib just because we can. And it looks like his mills were pretty unfortunate there. He's going to activate his trap there. We'll go ahead and negate it with Carrot. Very nice. Link these 2 off for Gigantic. And I was a little worried about him triggering his Pellerino with his Shuffler that he had sent to grave. So I went blue, went to Jet, went ahead and grabbed Gamma Burst, and I was running really low on time here. So I tried to calc it out. I thought I had lethal, so I went ahead and went in here. And I activate Called By here to force him to do this. I think he forgot about his Pellerino because he's just going to send back monsters from my grave, so he's not going to be able to pop anything on my board. And we're going to swing for some big damage, but it's not quite lethal, which is a little bit unfortunate. We're going to go to main phase 2. We'll just go ahead and link these off for IP Massacre on our opponent's turn, and we'll pass it back to my opponent. A lot for him to chew through. There's probably not much you can do. Let's see what he's got. He's got Kelback. Let's just go ahead and trigger the IP Mask here. We'll go into Avermax. I'll go ahead and trigger Lib. Lib, spin back Kelback. He's completely donezo. Passes back to us. Swing in for an easy lethal. And let's give the glory to Deus Ex. Yay, Floodgates. GG. Alright, next tool, let's see how we do when we lose the coin flip. We did actually open a hand trap, so that's nice. And it looks like it is an Exosister. We're not going to chain the Ash there because we're going to save that for the Martha. If we're going to activate Martha, we'll go ahead and activate the Ash here. Maybe that ends his turn, but let's see if he has any follow-up. He is actually going to be able to special summon some. He's going to go into Mikalis. He'll search out the Returnia. Special summon 1, set 1 card, it's probably Returnia, pass it over to me. My hand's looking a little scuffed. Starter does make it a little better, and then blue off the top is very nice. So we'll go ahead and just normal summon here. He's going to banish this here, but hidden ability on the Krawler, so I would have been able to special summon 2 Krawlers from deck, but he is going to throw his Ash there, so that actually worked out great for us, because that means my starter is going to go through, which means we can go red, into blue, into Jet, into Smashers, just very nice. So we'll go Gigantic here, detach. Let's go ahead and grab Keldogra. We'll go ahead and get the Schism set up. Just discard pawns there. We're probably not ever going to use that. But that allows us to special summon Lib. We'll set that card there. Oh, turns out I can't read here. He gets to pop that, so I guess I should have put Mind Meld down there because maybe he would have popped that. And we'll link off Lib because that'll allow us to activate Lib's effect to spin back his monster on the board. And then we have Elf on the board. Activate Elf. Let's just go ahead and grab this red. We'll go ahead and set Smashers, set Schism, see what my opponent can do against this with 2 cards. Probably not much, but let's see. We'll just go ahead and activate Elf here, get Jet. There's something red contribute, and then also to grab a starter here. And at that, he's done. So good game. Alright, won the coin flip again. This hand is super scuffed. Can we make anything happen with this? We will normal summon Maxi, and then we'll special summon Carrot that at least allows us to go into Gigantic. We'll go ahead and activate the survivors here. Maybe we find anything. We found a spine. Cool, that really does nothing for us, but okay. Well, we're just going to activate Gigantic. That'll at least allow us to get Blue and Jet. Activate Jet. Get Starter. Activate Starter. Grab Red. Link these two off for Elf. Activate Elf. Bring back Carrot. And we'll link these two off for IP Mask. Not the best board, not the worst end board, but it is a board, so we'll see what we're up against. And he activates Banishment. Okay, and it looks like it's Nurse Burn. You gotta love the beginning of the season. You never know what you might find. So at that, I slammed the Elf. I want that Carrot as quick as possible. He's going into the Void. He's going very deep into the Void. And then he's going to set 4 pass at the end phase. Or before he went to end phase, we'll go ahead and go into Unicorn. We're going to spin back that Nurse. He basically has to have bad reaction set, or he's probably just going to lose this duel. But we're just going to save Carrots just to negate that bad reaction. We're going to the main phase. At the start of the main phase, we'll activate Elf. We want to get Blue back. It's going to get more material on board and get some searches. He's going to activate that. He's going to activate Gift Card. I'm just going to let all these go through. He's going to activate Trap Trick. I really don't care about any of these. And I guess he forgot he didn't have a way to damage with that gift card. The gift card does not say deal 3,000 to your opponent, and he's going to scoop it up there. Good game. Alright, won the coin flip. Let's see what we can make happen. We've got Blue, Soma, Mind Meld. Pretty much perfect. We'll go ahead and just normal summon that pin. Special summon Soma. Get our 2 Krawlers. We're going to go Pico. Looks like no interruption from my opponent. We're just going to get to go off. We'll go ahead and send that Mind Meld to grave. Equip him with the Sting. We'll special summon Blue at this point. Search out Jet. Link these 2 off for Elf. Activate Elf, bring back Sting. Activate, we'll go ahead and special summon Jet there. Sorry, I forgot that Pin was the monster we set. So we're not going to be able to go as strong an end board as we'd like, but we'll still be able to put up, good enough. So we're going to go into Lib. We're going to set the pawns. Link these 2 off for IP Mask. We are, of course, level 2 lock, so we don't want to activate Mind Meld yet, but we know right at the draw phase, we're going to go ahead and fire that. And then we've got the Called By set 2, which is nice. And we're going to hold off on the pawns until we actually have something we want to negate. Bring back Carrot. It's like it's Link Dragon. At this point, we're just going to go ahead and get Deus Ex online. This searches out the Red Ice Fusion. He links off to go into Seals. Seals still doesn't do anything against Deus Ex, the way Deus Ex is worded. He's going to go end phase. At the end phase, we'll just go Avermax with Lib. Lib will just spin back that back row. And then he'll go to battle phase, and at that he scoops it up. Just pretty easy, clean game for us. GG. Alright, lost the coin flip. See what my opponent's on. Opens with the D-Fissure, very nice, and it looks like Unexplored wins, so it looks like it's Floo. He's going to send back 2 bricks. He draws, seems like 2 more bricks. I know it, unbelievable, a Floo player actually bricked on ladder. We've got a pretty solid hand, so we'll just go ahead and start out with Sting, add Pin, special summon Pin, go ahead and get in for that 200, go Jet, activate Jet, we'll go ahead and get Gamma Burst. We're looking to just end the game here. We'll go Gigantic here, activate Gigantic, get Red, activate Starter, grab Blue, activate Blue, grab Carrot, special summon Carrot, go to battle phase, activate that Gamma Burst. Super easy, clean, lethal, good game. Alright, last tool I got up for you. We win the coin flip again. We've got Sting, we've got Jet, so go ahead and normal summon that Sting. Get Pin. Pin gonna do that 360 no scope, minus 200. We'll go ahead and special summon Red at this point. Get Jet, get Starter. Sync these 2 off for Herald before we're locked into level 2s. He is going to respond with that Nib. We will go ahead and negate that with Herald. But now we'll go Blue. Blue will search out Carrot. Special summon Carrot. Link these 2, exceed these 2 off for Gigantic, activate Gigantic. Unfortunately, we lost our Herald there, but we're still going to be able to put up a great board, and our opponent's down a card. And we'll use a Galdogra, send a card, discard one of our Maxis, go into Elf with those 2, activate Elf, bring back Carrot, link these 2 off for IP Mask, set the Schism, and it might not look like the most threatening end board, but actually pretty strong. So yeah, looking good. Right at the draw phase, we'll go ahead and fire that Max C. Why not? We're pretty much do or die on this board. Soul Servant and his DM. I should have known by the DM mate. Welcome to Gold League, or as some people like to call it, you know, the Dark Magician special. He's going to start with the Timaeus. We'll go ahead and activate Shadal Schism. We want to use up his one special summon here, so we'll go ahead and grab Winda here. He's going to summon his monster. He's going to activate Soul Servant to draw that card. He's going to normal summon Rod. Rod's going to search out Circle. He'll activate Servant again. He'll put a DM on top. He'll activate Circle. He's going to add that DM to hand. Activate the Illusion of Chaos. Add Souls to hand. And I guess I'm actually surprised it lets him activate the souls here, because he's already used a special summon. He doesn't get a Dark Magician there, and then he tries to go to battle phase. We'll just go right into Crusadia. He can't beat over that, obviously. He was trying to get rid of my window, but he couldn't do that, and then he's just forced to pass back to me. Should be a pretty simple cleanup here. We'll go into Elf, and whoops, that was my one special summon for the turn. Forgot he is both parties, but we can at least tribute off for Soma. Is there nothing Soma can't do? And then we'll activate Soma, get 2 more Link monsters. Why not? Activate Gigantic. We know that card's in hand, Dark Magician. We just want to get Gamma Burst, just to Gamma Burst him out of here. Battle phase, activate Avermax, get him for big damage. Go Soma. Soma's level 2 now, 3,400, huge. And then we'll swing it for exact lethal with that Gigantic. Good game. Alright, so I've thrown together some other cards you might want to consider. If you can find the room, some more staple hand traps, maybe some blowout cards like Evenly Matched are probably great. If you can find the space, probably make the deck better. It's just a matter of finding the space. You could include some of the other crawlers, but really their effects are quite lackluster. If anything, you may want to up the number of the little crawlers that you're running from 2 to 3, because occasionally you will see the hand where you have Soma, but the only other monster you can normal summon is either Spine or Axon, and then Soma is only special summoning one monster from deck, because you'll have to flip one of them. You'll have to flip the other one, usually summon face down. And then Soma will stay as a level 4, which obviously doesn't work out well if you're going to go for like a gigantic Spright play. But the deck is already kind of heavy on garnets, so I would hate having to include another one for really that just fringe case. But you might want to consider it. Typical Spright decks, you know, are on Nimble Beaver. Beaver is just a great way to generate level 2 monsters on board, which is great for Spright. It's just a matter of space and whether you think it's worth doing. Because with like Beaver and Soma, you actually run into an issue of not having enough monster zones to work with, and really enough monsters in the extra deck to take advantage of all that material. So for those reasons, I'm not on Nimble Beaver, but I mean, they obviously pair great with the Spright package, so feel free to try it out. Most Spright builds are also on Swap Frog and Ronin Tonin, but typically those builds are summoning Swap Frog via Gigantic Spright, and with our build, we're usually trying to summon Gale Dogra with Gigantic because it gives us that discard outlet. So I'm not sure we would get the chance to really take advantage of Swap and Ronin, and whether they would just end up clogging our hands. So I ended up not running them, but I mean, they're obviously strong for getting Link material on board. We're on Inzektor, Pico, Felina, and typically we're just attaching Sting the Poison as our equip, but there's a couple others you might want to consider. Instead of equipping Sting, you could equip the Retaliating Sea, and then you could search Max C with the effect when Retaliating Sea goes to grave, which could be strong, but honestly, I think the extra material on board from Sting and Pin, and the synergy Sting has with the Spright package, is more important to run than Retaliating Sea. Resonance Insect could be another one you want to consider. Resonance Insect is a way to search Soma, but other than Pico, there really isn't a clean way for this deck to take advantage of that, and we really can't go into Pico without Soma, so I don't really see the point. You could possibly use Pico if you include like the level 2 generic Link monster Shinobi Insect. As you could go into him with the sprites and then equip him with a resonance by going into Pico with like Sting and Pin. But that line would probably come up so infrequently, I don't think the slot in the extra deck and the one of Garnet in the main is worth it. But go ahead and try it out if you want. World Legacy Succession is an interesting one. I played around with it for a bit. It's possibly a nice piece of extension. It's just, I don't know how often it would come up, and it can sometimes be a brick, since it can't be a starter. You need to get going before you can take advantage of it. It is a nice way to get a World Legacy card in the grave, meaning that's why you would run this over like Monster Reborn, which is obviously better, because that would get a World Legacy card in grave, and then we're free to summon Lib. I just found it not coming up, so I ended up cutting it. But if you're not a fan of like World Legacy Survivor, because it's just like not hitting for you, I guess, I could see maybe trying to run something like this instead. For the extra deck, you could run more of the El Shadal fusions. just to get more use out of Schism. But I think the slots in the extra deck are just being used by more valuable cards, so I don't think it's worth it. We'll just use Schism to set up Winda. Maybe that wins us the game, but if anything, it's probably going to eat up some sort of removal from our opponent. The Shaddoll Link monster is interesting, especially because its material required is 2 flip monsters, so we can easily go into this with the monster summoned off Soma. However, it does have some anti-synergy with like the Link Summon Lock from World Legacy Survivors and also Gigantic and Spright Starter, their level 2 Link 2 rank 2 Summon Lock. Also, we can pretty easily get to the Shaddoll fusions we want to with Gale Dogra and Schism, so ultimately I ended up cutting this card just because it never came up for me. You could try out the Mannequin Cat and End of Anubis stuff. It's interesting. It's going to completely ruin tier when you get it off. But it's just going to be a matter of finding space, whether you're comfortable running another Garnet, whether you want to try that out or not. I tried fitting this Krawler Link Monster Neurojos into both my B Trooper deck as well as this one. The idea being he's a Link 2, so you can revive him with Elf. Then if your opponent clears it, you get Spine and Axon back, which can then remove more cards. But it's just hard to get that whole thing set up. It's just hardly ever going to come off, and the payoff is just like, okay, I guess. I didn't think it was the most impactful thing for the extra deck, so I ended up cutting it. For this deck, same with the B Trooper decks, pretty much the exact same reasons, ended up cutting it. It just doesn't come up enough, just not impactful enough. Most Sprite builds can't really afford to run Apollo USA because they get summon locked by either Gigantic or Starter before they have enough material on board in order to go into Apollo USA. But that's not really the case for us because Soma puts so many material on board before you get into one of those summon locks. For example, you could like have Soma on board, summon your 2 Krawler, summon Blue, search Jet, go into some Link 2, then summon Jet, search Starter, and then before you activate that Starter, you link off for Apollo. I was running this for a bit, but I ended up cutting it because I was finding my inboard sufficient. And also, when we have access to basically permanent effect negation from Deus Ex, do we really need to be messing around with Apollo? Probably not, so I just ended up cutting it. Any cards I didn't mention here are just general staple cards you might want to try out. Feel free to let me know how they go. But that pretty much covers the other cards I have to consider. If you think there's something else I'm missing, please let me know below. But otherwise, let me give you some final thoughts on the deck. It's a cool deck, it's a strong deck, and it's a fun deck, but I don't think it's the way to play Spright, especially with tier running around. And I mean that more in like a competitive sense. For strength for this deck, Spright is a strong, consistent deck. Lots of ways to search the cards we need for either extension, interruption, or to find lethal with, Blue Jet, Starter, and Gigantic. The things that make Spright great are still present here. Those things will hold true for basically any Spright deck you put together. I do think this deck has a slightly higher ceiling than most other variants just because we have access to Deus Ex Krawler. I mean, because it turns out a one-sided skill drain, and throwing alongside stuff like, El Shaddoll, Winda, Spright, Elf, and then whatever else you can get on the board, like a red or carrot, is a pretty strong end board. You can definitely take this deck to ladder and get some wins. However, for weaknesses for this deck, the ceiling for this deck may be a lot higher than normal Spright, but the floor is way, way lower than other Spright variants. Garbage level 2 monsters, just multiple Garnets, and then, lack of staples just make the deck a whole lot worse. I mean, the Crawlers are cool art and flavor-wise, but being a flip summon archetype just sucks. I mean, there are so many cool flip summon archetypes, and they're just never going to be good because the mechanic is just so easy to play around and just so horribly slow, which is just really unfortunate. Besides, like, Soma and Deus Ex, the World Legacy and Krawler main deck cards are just not very good and take up, like, over 30% of our deck, which of course means we can't really afford to run any, like, really good blowout cards beyond what like we already have in here, like Max C. We're on like 7 Garnets between Pin, Gale Dogra, Spine, and Axon, Deus Ex, Pawns, and then Schism. So you'll see some pretty unplayable hands when you play this deck, unfortunately. You could honestly probably cut all the weird World Legacy cards like Survivor, Mind Meld, Pawns, and Deus Ex, and just run a more traditional Spright deck, but you just throw in Soma as a starter and an extender for the deck. A build would probably look something like this. I kind of was working on this. Please note I have not really played around with this build that much or taken it to ladder. But this sort of build is basically just doing what every Spright deck is doing. and I just made a video on a more traditional Sprite deck, so I was more interested in running something that did something different. And I think that really comes down to why you might want to play this deck, which is really the fun aspect. In terms of fun, this deck is very, very fun. You can do some really interesting plays with this deck when you find the right pieces. Having access to so many materials with cards like Soma, and access to so many interesting cards with cards like Mind Meld and Lib and IP Masquerena into like Avermax is such a cool and just probably game-winning combo when you get to pull it off that normal Sprite just isn't going to be able to do. And it's also fun trying to weave lines, playing around some of the summon locks. My only complaint regarding fun with this deck is you do all these cool plays and you're making all these summons, and it's really all just to set up just a stupid Floodgate with Deus Ex. I'm not generally a Floodgate enjoyer. I mean, obviously Deus Ex is strong, but skill drain on a body does not make for interesting games, does not require much thought on my end on how to use him, and it's just simply lazy card design, so it kind of feels bad that this is the payoff for running this deck. And that's strictly from the fun side. I mean, competitive wise, you want to get this monster out when you can. And that's not to say he's the only payoff for the deck. There are plenty of strong contenders available to you, but really they're just the payoff that basically every deck, especially Sprite decks, have access to. In terms of price, this deck is too expensive for what you get. Soma is obviously strong, but you can do basically just as good running Nimble Beaver and Swap Frog. The Shadal cards are also very expensive and could possibly be cut, but we really like the discard outlet from App Cologne and that we are able to do with Galdagra. The Sprite package is definitely worth picking up, especially if you're looking for something competitive. You'll get your money's worth with that, but the rest of the deck, probably not so much. You'd be much better off crafting some like staple hand traps and board breakers if you don't already have them. If this deck does interest you enough, though, I'd say you won't feel bad if you do put this together, bearing in mind it's not going to be top of the meta probably ever. I mean, Soma has quickly become one of my favorite cards like of all time, and I'm looking forward to seeing what I can keep doing with him in the future. But that's pretty much all for me, though. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to post them below. If you enjoyed the video or found any portion of it helpful, I greatly appreciate any likes or feedback. If you'd like to see more deck profiles, be sure to check out my other videos and subscribe to this channel. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I thank you for watching. I mainly started making these videos just as a hobby, as I really like putting them together. It's pretty fun. So many thanks to all of you for sticking around and watching them. But anyway, good night, friends, and I'll see ya!